special edition of the New Overlords podcast. I'm Max, and with me is my co-host Seema. Hello, Seema.
Hey, Max.
And today we're doing a special behind the game style chat with Kenneth Engelsen, the team lead and game designer from Rain Games for the game Girl Genius: Adventures in Castle Heterodyne. Kenny, hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Yeah, glad to catch up with you again. To go way back, I've been a fan of the webcomic Girl Genius, and for people that aren't familiar, we'll talk about it a little bit, but it started back in almost 20 years ago now. And as I was walking through PAX West about a month ago or a month and a half ago now, out of the corner of my eye, a game caught my eye, and it was Girl Genius. And it was all of the art and all of the style and everything that sort of made that webcomic come to life now for many, many years. And so I had to go try it out. And that's where I met Kenny, where I met you. And it was super cool. I was amazed to see it rendered so faithfully to the art. So that's why we wanted to get you on to talk about it a little bit more, to tell us about the game. Even though I played it a little bit, and I think Seema's played it a little bit. It's already on Steam right now, and there's a demo that people can play. But we want to hear about the game, and we want to hear about how it all came to life. So why don't you kick us off by telling us about the game itself? What's the game like?
All right. So, Girl Genius: Adventures in Castle Heterodyne. It's a 3D action adventure game in the style of the old Zelda titles and Ratchet and Clank. PlayStation 2 era, kind of around there, with the player playing as the heroine Agatha, which is the main character from the series of Girl Genius, and you are exploring the inside of Castle Heterodyne, because Agatha has to go into the castle, repair it, and take control over it in order to become a true Heterodyne, basically a princess. And that's the sort of intro for the game. And you have another fun playable character as well. Agatha's little pocket watch assistant is called Dingbot Clank. So it's a small little pocket watch robot, you might say, that runs around and helps Agatha fix things.
Yeah,
that's sort of like the short.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was playing through the demo, and when I first saw that you had this opportunity to become the Dingbot, I was like, oh no, because usually I don't like that in games, but it's adorable in this game. And the movement is very intuitive, and I mean, right from the get-go, even before Dingbot, I felt like Agatha was a character that I could really that I could be, not just because she's female and I'm female, but she was just like very approachable, and I was drawn right in.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that. It's actually something I hear a lot, because heroines, like role models, Agatha is an inventor. She has the mad science. She has the spark of creation inside of her. That's sort of the ideals that we are running here, and it's a completely different feel and vibe to be that character. So I hear that a lot, that many people relate to it, and really, they feel like this is the character I have been missing in my life,
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
She's very emotive. She's got a lot of character. She's sarcastic and sassy, but you're right. She's very tactile and hands-on. She makes things, she creates things. She's a mechanic. She's a mechanical engineer. An inventor. So you getting to just take control of that and be that too, and use that then to solve the puzzles of like getting through the adventure. That's really compelling.
Yes. So Agatha likes to solve problems with the wrench. And in this game, it has definitely been gamified. So Agatha gets the first item you get in the game is the wrench. You steal Faustus Heterodyne's wrench from a statue, and she uses it throughout the entire game to either hit enemies, like these robotic clanks that mess with you. So it's like a melee weapon, but also it interacts with levers and switches to kind of, solve puzzles and areas as well. So the wrench and the mechanic aspect of it all is very much a feel throughout the game.
And it's that feeling you get when you slot the wrench into something and pull it and it responds is just it's just very satisfying. And just so that people can picture this, when you get the wrench, she wears it on her back like a weapon, and it's almost as tall as she is. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that, a 2-meter long sword, they don't weigh anything in video games, right?
Right,
And,
exactly.
And in the comic book world. So you kind of want to amplify that feel when you're making video games. Like the car is faster, the person runs faster, hits harder, is bigger, to kind of stereotype it a little bit in a way, or abstract it.
It's got a great feel, and I agree with Seema talking about the robot. It fits really well, and there's plenty of other games where you play the game and you maybe even customize your skill set, and you're getting really used to the character, and then they throw you off into some other game mode where you control. Now you have to control a car or something, and it's not the game you wanted to play. Where
Right.
Here, switching back and forth between the two characters going to the robot, it still fits. It's just that the robot
it's
can go
kinda
into places
seamless.
that Agatha can't go into, and it does. It feels really well.
And I also like too that you can just start the game. You can just start, right? There's 1 or 2 tips or hints, or this is how you move and blah blah blah. But there's you can if you don't want to dig into skill trees and everything like that, you can just play.
Yeah, it's very accessible in that way. It's a solve the puzzle. It's not grind out levels or something before you can do anything. That's absolutely true too.
Yeah, and also one of the key points that we want to achieve with the Dingbot gameplay and then the Agatha gameplay is this sort of cooperative feel, like they assist each other. Agatha sometimes need to help the Dingbot proceed because something is in the Dingbot's way, and vice versa, so that you feel like you're helping each other.
Almost co-op, but you're controlling both the players. Yeah, that's really cool. So we're dancing around it a little bit here. The webcomic itself. So Agatha, so Girl Genius, and there's a subtitle. It's Adventures in Castle Heterodyne or something like that. But the webcomic, I always just called it Girl Genius. And I know it started back in 2000. And it started, in fact, I've got their names, and they're amazing people, Professors Phil and Kaha Folio. They're both professors. They're both writers and creators. They're very cool. I saw them in the Kickstarter video. We'll show some video of the Kickstarter video where they mention it. They describe it, and they've been doing it for a long time. It's kind of steampunk, but they describe it as gas lamp fantasy. And it has been a great webcomic for decades now. So back in the day, so this is early 2000s. Well, this started in 2000. Back then, for people that don't know, the internet was a more innocent place. not necessarily innocent. There were pockets of craziness going on, but it wasn't as commercialized. It wasn't as built out. And when you wanted to spend time on the internet and waste time, there wasn't an infinite number of social networks with endless scrolling feeds that you would just get lost in for hours and hours. So you would go and seek out interesting content. Webcomics had a bigger moment back then because that was one of the few things that was sort of taking off then. They're obviously still around now, but that was one of the main things you would go to the internet for. And there were a handful of webcomics that I really liked, and this was one of them. And it was because not only was it an entertaining comic, but the artwork was really well done. The characters were really well done, and it was a step ahead. It was almost you could almost think of it as a triple A. It was almost a triple A stuff, like a big production. Is this Dark Horse Comics doing this thing? And it wasn't. It was this, this couple, husband and wife, Phil and Kaya, doing this thing that was just amazing. They won a couple Hugo Sci-Fi Web Cartoonist Choice Awards. They've been widely recognized as doing amazing work for many years. Okay, so that's the webcomic, and people should check it out. How did you get connected? You and Rain Games. How did you get connected to them, or how did this all start? Then here's this cool webcomic that's been going on for decades. How did this come about?
So, in short, we have another company in-house here that we work with as well, called Inkipen, that does a service for Nintendo Switch, like an app that does where you can subscribe and then you get to read comics and manga. So our CEO, Peter, he traveled to San Diego Comic-Con with this company, Inkipen, in order to meet the comic industry in USA. And then what happened was that Phil and Kaya Folio, they were kind of visiting their booth, talking about Inkipen. But then what happened is the good old, you work with games? Sort of. In short.
Yeah.
So Peter Meldal, CEO of Rain, and Phil and Kaya started talking at San Diego Comic-Con. This was a few years ago now, so it must have been, I think it was around 2018. It took us a little while before everything sort of started, but that was when the first meeting happened. And we just got into a talk because Rain Games, our previous titles are steampunk themed in a way, and so the genre of steampunk. And Girl Genius is steampunk or gaslamp fantasy, right?
Yeah, but steampunk, yeah.
And Phil and Kaya, one of their big dreams was to have the Girl Genius IP be made into a video game. And these types of talks can happen sometimes, right? And then it sort of fizzles out or goes away. But this one didn't. We kept emailing and going back and forth, seeing how we could achieve this for at least half a year. It took a while, back and forth. But then we agreed. Rain Games is going to commit to make a video game if we are successful with a Kickstarter campaign. And that's where it sort of kicked off everything. We got the IP rights to do the video game based upon it, and then we did a Kickstarter campaign in the year of 2020.
Yeah, that I watched the Kickstarter video. I watched it through a couple times because you're in it. You do a really good job of sort of setting the stage. The whole theme around the whole video is done really well. And then Phil and Kaya are in the video, and they were compelling. It was like, I want to meet these people. I want to know more. Then knowing that it's based on this beloved web property, this beloved IP was compelling. I'm sure it caught probably a lot of old fans of the webcomic and pulled those forward. What would you say is the sort of the split between old fans and people new to it that have just sort of been turned on to it because they saw it out of the game now coming to Steam and the Kickstarter?
I think that what has happened is that, Girl Genius has been running for a very long time. So 20 years, like you said. This means basically a generation or two for many people. It has such a long history that one of the things that I hear the most is, I used to read that back in 2010. Then I didn't read it for a few years, and then I caught up with it again. I just like, oh shit, I should read. I should start reading it again, right? So it's sort of like people have been dropping in and out of reading it and following it up, but there are people that has been following this for 20 years. I think that for fans, I think that is actually most fans are, have been reading it for a long time. And then we hope that the game will help bring in new readers for the comic as well. And I think that it's we'll see what happens if we get like more new younger readers for Girl Genius as well. But that's sort of like the vibe. It's like a broad age spectrum of people that are interested in it. A lot of the Kickstarter backers are like 60 years old, right? Like
right.
And they want to play the game. It's awesome. I think it's just cool.
I really expect it to create this multi-generational set of fans now as a result, to elevate it, bring it into a new medium, engaging, but then also turn those young game players into readers of the comic. And I foresee that being a really interesting thing. One of the things I noticed when I was playing it, and Seema, I think you mentioned this too, is if you look at the webcomic and you're a fan of the webcomic and you look at Agatha and you in your head, it's just a webcomic. It's never been like animated before. I don't think it has. But you in your head picture what she's doing and what her motions are and how she sounds and how she talks. I would have imagined it would have been hard, but you guys seem to have made it really easy to translate from the cell drawings to translate from the ink and the ink and color into not only a 3D figure, but then a 3D figure that's animated such that it looks like you would expect her to look and behave, and the motions that she has and how she puts her hands on her hip and it stands there, strikes a pose and that kind of thing, and the way she uses the wrench. Tell me about that process. I mean, how did you guys go through that to capture it so faithfully?
Well, first of all, like in the early production, right? One of the things we do, several of us are readers of Girl Genius. We sort of understand like the innateness of Girl Genius just by having read it. But then we started analyzing Phil Folio's art and how impacts are done and how certain characters strike a pose, because he has a pretty distinct art style, a way of conveying movement and poses. So we tried to kind of capture that spirit. I also joke when I do these types of interviews, I joke. One of our artists had to do a little bit of a blood ritual to kind of absorb Phil Folio's style into her body.
The secret's out.
Yeah, that's just part of game development. You know?
Yeah, a little sacrifice, summoning circles, and
So it was a study, you might say, a study of the existing artwork and how we can translate it into 3D and how we can do it with a small team as well. So it's one of those big challenges that was, running through the entire production of about 3 years. So I felt like that was a thing that went better and better and better over time. It wasn't like an immediate success. We kind of had to find it.
And just so people know, Rain Games is not a huge studio. How many people in Rain Games and how many people were working on this project? Because I know you have multiple teams.
Rain Games are now 15 people, divided into 2 teams and a very, very small administration staff of 1 person.
Yeah.
So basically, 7 on each team.
Truly an indie team. Yeah.
Truly it is.
to do the adaptation of existing IP like this for a small indie team has got to be a huge challenge. I mean, a lot of indie teams will just, they'll make the art and the style of the game fit what they're able to implement, which will then potentially even constrain the art and the style, because they just need to get a game done. Where you guys had both the challenge of creating the game and a really cool game to play, but faithfully representing the IP. Did Phil and Kaya, were they involved in that process? Did they do like extra, like poses or drawings or provide you with assets that helped with the design pipeline?
Well, they did some things, yes. For example, they drew the cover box, the box art. So the main key art was drawn by Phil Folio, for example. And they helped us all the time during production. We would check in with them regularly. This is one of those big things for this production. We didn't talk to like a lawyer or something that is managing an IP. We talked directly to the authors, and they would give immediate response. So we would check in with them, be like, does this fit? Does this work? Do you feel like this is a correct portrayal? Or, do you feel like this is Girl Genius? We would do that regularly.
Excellent. That had to be really valuable for you and your team, and probably really fun for Phil and Kaya too, because he did seem very genuinely interested in the Kickstarter video of like, this is something we've been thinking about for a really long time. And if you're that person who had the idea for a game, and as you said, there's a long journey between, hey, wouldn't this be cool, and actually starting and then finishing a game.
Right. Yeah.
But if I had an idea and then actually got to work directly with the team and take some of my art and turn it into a game, I would want to be hands-on. And sometimes you can't do that, it just doesn't work that way. So that had to be really fun, I would imagine, for them.
But their wish of having Girl Genius as a video game is not just for other players. They want to play it. They are gamers. Yeah. They enjoy playing video games. Kaya Folio has played a lot of World of Warcraft, for example. So it's one of those things she always said. She has certain things on her sort of like want list. And one of them was a video game, and then a BBC miniseries is something she very often says. She has like 3 things, basically. And now she got the game, so...
All right.
Well, if they do make that BBC miniseries, they could learn a lot from what you guys did in making the game. Because I did not grow up reading the webcomic, so I just looked at it now when we knew we were going to talk to you. And comics in general are a very dense medium for providing story to you. So like there's a lot going on the page. If you're not an experienced comic reader, you sometimes don't know which bubbles to read next and all this stuff. And the contrast between that experience and the game, which is just everything is very clear. You get story beats as they happen. That's an amazing transformation as well.
I have to say, I'm very glad that you say that, because that was very much my job. I was
well, congratulations.
I was responsible for that pacing. We had to condense the storyline of Girl Genius. We had to remove side characters, but still keep like what is the core of this story, and how many for video games as a medium. We need to remove amount of words. Okay, we have a dialogue in speech bubbles, right? We know that is going to be a core feature of this game. But you don't want to have too many words in those speech bubbles, or else people will lose interest. So it was a hard balance of, cutting it down to quality. That was like the objective of it all. And a lot of work to kind of make everything just sit right. But I think that we managed to strike the core of that story of Agatha's hero's journey, becoming a princess or a true heterodyne. and also having in a game that has quite a bit of narrative to also pace it so that the player experiences gameplay elements, right?
Right, right. It's a tricky balance.
The environment of the gameplay in the game, we weren't exactly clear on this. The idea of Castle Heterodyne being somewhat alive and the antagonist of what's going on in a lot of the situation, and that's in the webcomic as well. If people are familiar with Portal and GLaDOS, sort of like controlling the environment, get a little bit of that kind of feel, or maybe GLaDOS was inspired by this. I mean, you can sort of flip that around. I don't remember exactly when Portal came out, but that's really compelling. It's that sentient house that hates you, and you have to like fight your way through it and like fix the parts that are broken and repair it so it doesn't hate you anymore, kind of thing, fighting back and forth. Both great in the comic and a really good setup then for the game. So that leads me to the question of, there are probably a few different games you could have made. You could have made like a more of an RPG adventure. You know, it's very much more story driven and, you know, grinding your character and doing things. You could have made just a web comic version, just like the playable comic.
Yeah,
version of the
actually
game.
flipping pages and stuff. Yeah.
The narrative, those narrative games exist. So how did you come to the decision for like the puzzle action adventure that you ended up with versus other ways it could have resolved?
One of the big reasons is that small businesses like Rain, we need to be smart when we are working. We have to try to leverage every advantage or opportunity we can find, and the technology that we build in the company should be reused so that we can, grow as a company, make better things over time. And this was one of the big ones. So we have a previous game called Overlords West, which was an action-adventure game where you played as 4 separate characters. But, the core of that video game, Overlords West, we could reuse, which would save us time in the game development. Because a lot of systems were already there. That was one of the biggest reasons why Girl Genius Adventures in Castle Heterodyne is a 3D action-adventure game.
Got it. And that makes a ton of sense. And that's the reason, for people that are listening, that's the reason we get so many good games these days, is because they're built on the shoulders of other great games. And yeah, especially for an indie studio, that makes a ton of sense. And it fits perfectly too. I mean, it seems like even if you had the opportunity to just pick any kind of genre of game at all, this fits just so well because that's what's going on in the comic. That's sort of the core of the action, is this adventure to like fix things and explore and fight your way through puzzles, and it just sort of naturally fits from that perspective as well.
I want to say one more thing because I think it's interesting. I want to lean into nostalgia a little bit with the game. I want to make people feel like it's from a different time, but I kind of recognize it. Basically in this case it's PlayStation 2 era. But a lot of people have a nostalgic relationship to Girl Genius. Like we spoke about earlier. Oh yeah, I remember that. I read that back in 2005 or 2010. Oh yeah, that brings back memories from when I was growing up or when I was at school or university or whatever. And we want to lean into that feeling when you were sort of playing the game. I just think that's an interesting little secret or observation, you want to say.
Which I think is so great and serves the people who are asking you to make the game through the Kickstarter, because that's the people who are probably engaged first, is those people that said, "Oh, Girl Genius, what's going on?" Mm-hmm. And then want the game. They're not going to want something that's completely different, completely divorced, or completely modernized. They're probably excited for it to be that feeling of the first time you started getting into Girl Genius. So that makes a ton of sense. But that said, it's still a very valid current game. The mechanics of the game are 2023 game mechanics. It's not like it's built on an old engine, or or it doesn't operate, or it doesn't feel like a modern game. So I don't want people to get confused from that perspective. I think
Yeah.
yeah, the style and the design and the feeling, the art direction, the content design, I think, is where you get that feeling, which is really cool. So Seema, you played it. I played it. I played it both at PAX and the demo. So you've got a demo now on Steam. What was your experience playing it, Seema?
Well, like I said, I was really happy with Agatha, the character, and I was really happy with the pace. And I was really happy that I could immediately know what to do. And you go and talk to characters and, learn that sort of like your mission in Castle Heterodyne is to, basically repair the castle. I ran afoul of the puzzles, though, so that's not my strong suit. So I had to work on those for a while. But they were fun.
Yeah. With any game, you need to sort of get into the groove of how the puzzles work and how the mechanics work to solve the puzzles. Because I wouldn't say, Seema, that your puzzles aren't your thing, because puzzles can be your thing.
Okay, puzzles, I do enjoy puzzles, and puzzles are my thing. But the spatial ones where you have to know where something is in relationship to where I am on the screen, I don't know if it's how my brain works. I still see everything in 2D, so it's kind of hard for me to do those kind of puzzles.
The alternative is just to click all the buttons.
Yeah. I just go to all the places and click all the buttons until something happens. Good.
And it's looking fun and cool while you click. So that certainly works as well.
And I thought it was really, really, really intriguing that the second or third character she meets knows who she is. The first two characters don't. They just think she's, the newbie in the castle. But then she meets the guy in the kitchen, Moloff, or sorry, I forgot his name. And he's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And she's like, "Shh, don't tell anyone." Yeah.
So there is this, interconnected world, as we call it, right? Like the game definitely hints that there are things happening in another storyline outside of the Castle Heterodyne, right? Like there's these other characters and things coming from the outside, coming in. It's very hard challenge for a video game to do. And I think we did our best, and I don't know if we succeeded 100% at that, because it's just like almost impossible. We provided the players with like lore that would make sense if you read it. Like, oh, okay, I see. That's how Agatha connects to the character Moloch that you spoke about. You can kind of optionally read such content and understand more of the interconnectedness. But we tried to make, as much as we could, a standalone game that kind of, if you don't know anything, you can still play the game and understand like the core story.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think it was implemented well as well. For the people that know all the lore and are, well versed in all of the comics, it's almost like an Easter egg, or it's something that you could recognize, and
or like meeting
sparks,
a friend, an old friend,
right? And you get excited when you recognize it. For the people that don't, that's fine too. And I think a lot of times media will go too far to explain. And as you said, if we had to like stop this action adventure where I'm trying to solve these puzzles, if we had to like put the brakes on that for me to get like 10 minutes of narrative or reading text on the screen to explain the backstory of who this person is, not only would I not be interested, but it would interrupt the game that I'm there to play. And having a little bit of mystery is good too. Like, oh wait, as Seema said, they know each other. There must be something more going on, and let that mystery unfold or not, or just allude to other things, make you realize that there's a bigger world, but then still be able to play this particular game. Now that leads me to one of the final questions we'll wrap up with. Where do you see this going? I mean, do you guys see like more adventures for Agatha that you guys could could get involved in?
Well, there's gonna be more adventures for certain players that only own a Nintendo Switch, because the game is coming out on Nintendo Switch in winter. So that is very fun.
I played it on the Switch when I was at PAX, right? So I was playing with the Switch, which I am not a Switch player. So I was, the buttons are different. So it took me a little bit to get used to, but I was figuring that you're going to end up on that platform because I was playing it on it at PAX. Right,
yeah, you got the pre-playing. You are one of those lucky ones, and the medallion you hold in your hand is proof that you were there.
Yes, I said when we had our post-PAX show that I don't tend to get swag. I don't tend to ask for it. I don't like it. It just because it like fills up the suitcase but a couple things catch my eye here and there. And this, you gave me this and while I was there, and it's got a little hole in it. You can turn it into a necklace if you want, but it's solid. It's cast really well. It's got great art on it. So who designed this?
So that is artwork by Phil and Kaya Folio. They make a lot of cool stuff as well.
Oh, wow.
Like little pins and gadgets and patches, and they have like this whole thing. And I totally recommend checking it out because it's just a very fun things, not expensive as well.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. So it's on Steam right now. And so people can go there and get it off of Steam. There's the playable demo, and then, as you said, soon coming to Switch as well. So that's exciting. So congratulations to you and the whole team, to Phil and Kaya. I think it's very cool to see something like this come to life. So, what else? Any place else that they should catch up with you or follow to make sure that make sure that people are on track?
So what people can do is follow Rain Games on Twitter. We are on Twitter, and we also have a public community Discord that people can just search for. And so you just search for Rain Games Community Discord, so then you can hang out and meet our people that like the same cool stuff as you. Yes.
Excellent. And check out all the rest of the games that Rain Games makes as well, because they're really, really cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Kenny. And this was amazing. And we're going to get back to playing the game. So thank you very much.
Have fun.
Bye.